guys, it's Katie, and I'm here today to do my March wrap up and my April TBR. I tend to like doing these combined videos because they're just easier, so that's probably what I'm going to do from now on. Also, if you don't remember Sasha, this is Sasha. She says hi. But anyway, let's get to it. In March, a lot of things happened. Most importantly, I somehow managed to finish 4 books in March. I don't know how. I don't know how I did that, but I did. So yeah, we're going to talk about March first. The first book I read in March was The Anxious Lawyer by Gina Cho and Karen Gifford. And basically what this book is all about is it's an 8-week program of how to be mindful and how to apply it to a practicing attorneys, and even a little bit in law school. And I had to read this for my Mindful Lawyer class, which is a class I'm taking in school right now. And I liked it a lot. I liked more the exercises than the actual stories in there, but the stories are really interesting too. So I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars. The second book I read in March, and this was over my spring break, otherwise I never would have been able to read it, was Blood of Dragons by Robin Hobb, which, if you don't know this about me already, I love Robin Hobb, and so I loved this, which is the completion of the Rainwild Chronicle, which is the 13th book in the overall Realm of the Elderling series. And I gave this a 5 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. All of my reviews for these will be posted below, by the way. And then the last 2 books I read in March were 1984 by George Orwell, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and Lights Out by Ted Koppel, which I also gave a 4 out of 5 stars. And talking about 1984 briefly, I really enjoyed that. George Orwell is really, really wild, compelling author, and I really enjoyed both the books that I've read by him, because I read Animal Farm, and then now I've read 1984. And if you guys are probably wondering why I only gave him a 4 out of 5 stars, it was actually closer to a 4.5 out of 5 stars. Basically, it's a dystopian society where there's this, I guess we'll call it a big organization that literally watches every tiny little thing that you're doing. And it's called Big Brother. So Big Brother is watching you. And they literally watch everything you do. So it's just, the book follows this man by the name of Winston Smith, and just kind of about his life veering away from doing what Big Brother wants you to do, to kind of a rebellious state, and then what happens to him after all of that happens. And it's really interesting and really scary, but really fun too. So yeah, I really liked 1984. And then Lights Out by Ted Koppel is primarily about how the United States would handle a cyber attack, and if our entire grid was taken out and we were just in a blackout for days, weeks, months on end, and just kind of how we were to survive that. And I talk a little bit more about this in my review, but basically that book was really interesting because it gives you ways to deal with things on your own, like different ways to come up with how you could protect yourself in the event of an attack. That pretty much wraps up my March wrap up. And let's get into the books I'm going to read in April. There are 4 books I'm planning on reading in April, since some of them will be carrying over from March, because I didn't read the books that I was originally planning on reading in March, except for Blood of Dragons. So the first book I'm planning on reading in April is Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. This was not on my March TBR, but I promised Kelsey at Hardback Haven that I would read this in April, and so I'm planning on keeping my promise. And so this will be my first foray into the land of Brandon Sanderson, and I'm super excited about it because I've had so many friends and so many people tell me that I need to read Brandon Sanderson at some point. And he's been on my radar for a while, and I've had this book since high school, and I'm super excited to pick it up. I don't know much about what it's about, except for it seems to be about this prince guy who has to go on an adventure to save a society or something. I don't really know. All I know is basically if you love fantasy, that you've got to read at least some Brandon Sanderson at some point. So yeah, I thought I'd give him a start this April, so I'm super excited to read that, and I'll probably start this first. And next in April, I want to read The Legend of Sigurd and Gudrun by J.R.R. Tolkien, which seems to be just a translation of a couple of songs and poems from Norse mythology. And if you guys don't know this about Tolkien already, he was a professor and a linguist, and so translation was his actual life aspiration. And so I'd just be very curious to see how this book turned out. And I love Tolkien, so I will read anything by him. And so that's why I'm going to pick this up at some point in April. Another book I want to read in April is The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I've had this on my TBR for quite a while, along with every book ever. And basically what it's about is about Patroclus and Achilles' love story, which follows them from the time they're teenagers all the way up to what we know happened in the Trojan War in the Iliad. And I know I'm going to cry, but I know I'm going to love it. So I'm super excited to get to that in April, I hope. And the last book I'm planning on reading in April is Murder on the Appian Way by Stephen Saylor. And with this book follows, I think, just Gordianus, who's the main protagonist of the series of these books, and dealing with a murder of, I believe, Publius Clodius, and just kind of following that. But the thing I love about Stephen Saylor is he writes pretty accurate stories. They're historical fiction with a murder mystery, basically. And they all take place in ancient Rome. And that's kind of my jam. So, yeah, I love Stephen Saylor. I've only read one other book by him, but I absolutely loved it. I actually started this book several years ago, but then I just got super busy with other real life things, and so I just forgot about it and never continued. But I know that this time I will probably end up actually continuing. That's basically what my TBR is. It's a bit ambitious, my top two choices, if I can only get to two of them, because a lot of these are pretty sort of chunky with what I've got going on. But if I could only pick two to read, they would be Elantris and The Song of Achilles. And so yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, that's all I've got for today. So as always, feel free to like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and I'll come back with another video for you guys again soon. Okay, bye!